15,000 years ago, there were no humans in this part of the world, just ice, 3-4 kilometers deep. As the Ice Age wound down, the glaciers retreated and the ocean floor rebounded to fling up a spattering of rocky atolls, sprinkled like an unstrung necklace across the Salish Sea. We call them the Gulf Islands, and if you counted every shoal and sandbar visible above high tide, they would number in the thousands, from the American San Juans in the south to Quadra Island in the north. This is the story of 470 of them. These Gulf Islands have been placed in trust.
Islander, an islander, right to my very bones. I prefer an island world. I live on an island home. I live on an island home. How an island could be paradise, filled with a mystery. An island could be lapped by lakes, or shrouded by the sea. For some it's the motion, the ocean shifts and breathes. A lake can be a blessing, and the ocean sets you free. A Highlander, an islander, right to my very bones. I prefer an island world, and I prefer my island girl. I'm the oyster, she's the pearl. We live on an island home. We live on an island home.
For several thousand years, the Gulf Islands didn't need a whole lot of protection. Coast Salish First Nations people were here and they lived lightly on the land, taking what they needed for food and shelter and nothing more. Then, in the 1600s, strange shapes appeared on the horizon. Huge canoes with white billowing wings, harsh shouts in a foreign tongue carried on the wind. Those first ships were Spanish and left behind them names we still use today: Saturna, Galiano, Gabriola, Valdez, Quadra, all Spanish names. Next came the British, the names of whose ship's officers still adorn our maps: Pender, Maine, Hornby, Denman, and, for that matter, Vancouver. Gradually, word spread in Europe and Asia about these verdant Edens off the west coast of North America, with their Mediterranean summers, their freakishly un-Canadian winters, mild, wet, and unclaimed acres of virgin timber, fertile soil, and bountiful waters. By the mid-1800s, non-Aboriginal settlers were arriving from all over the world, spurred on by a newly established British colonial government and the Hudson Bay Company, whose spokesman declared that so-called unoccupied lands on the islands were now available for colonization. Nobody consulted the First Nations about that. Things began to change in the Gulf Islands. The new residents needed roads, ports, town sites, medical facilities, schools, all the things that permanent settlement required. Those first settlers learned to pull together, helping each other one-to-one without benefit of long-range planning or land use regulations. But the new settlers came with a heavier footprint. The loggers cut down forests. The farmers cleared land for cultivation. They brought in sheep and cattle and planted fruit trees. Still, life in the Gulf Islands remained largely rural with small sprinkles of population. And then came the 1960s. The Canadian economy was booming, as was British Columbia's. BC Ferries was created, and suddenly the moat of the Salish Sea separating the Gulf Islands from the rest of North America was not so unbreachable. It was now much, much easier to get to the Gulf Islands. Developers sniffed the change on the wind. In 1967, the residents on North Pender Island awoke to discover that part of their island had been carved into 1,200 city-sized lots overnight. This was Magic Lake Estates, an instant subdivision, the largest in all of Canada. The Gulf Islands were on the verge of becoming a realtor's free-for-all. For $50, you could actually buy a lot in Magic Lake Estates along with your cotton candy at the P&E. On tiny Mudge Island, working farms were bought up and cupcaked into 185 half-acre lots. Plans were announced for similar subdivisions on Salt Spring, Maine, and Bowen. A University of BC study predicted that rapid, intense development on all the Gulf Islands was just around the corner. And why not? There were precious few regulations against it. Land speculation was rampant. The prospect of more instant subdivisions loomed. In 1969, as a stopgap, the provincial government passed a law limiting subdivision development across the Gulf Islands to minimum 10-acre lots. This ensured there would be no more Magic Lake Estates surprises, but the government realized something more concrete needed to be done to protect the Gulf Islands permanently. In 1974, the Islands Trust Act was passed. It decreed that all islands in the central and southern part of the Salish Sea be protected by a special act of the BC government and administered as a trust area for all people of British Columbia. It was a unique form of regional governance responsible for, and I quote, the future of each island, including land use, future growth patterns, control of development, industrial, recreational, and commercial activity, unquote. Not everyone was pleased. In 1982, BC's Minister of Municipal Affairs, Bill Vander Zalm, introduced a bill to abolish the Islands Trust entirely. That move ignited a tsunami of protest. The Times colonists called the bill reckless and foolish. The Vancouver Sun blasted it as an invitation to plunder a one-of-a-kind treasure house. Faced with fierce opposition from regional districts, the Union of BC Municipalities, the media, and the public, Bill's bill crashed and burned. After 7 more years of political wrangling, the Islands Trust Council was established. It was made up of 26 trustees who are elected by islanders. The trustees also sit on local 3-member committees to manage land use and development. The Islands Trust Fund Board was also created. This is the conservancy arm under which the trust can accept donations and purchase land to preserve and protect the unique character and environment of the Islands Trust area. That, in a nutshell, is why the Islands Trust exists, to safeguard what it was that made Gulf Islanders want to live here in the first place. Most human settlements grow like Spanish broom. Seeds and settlements fall willy-nilly and take root without regard for future consequences. In the case of human communities, this has meant that land use planning has traditionally been dictated by service demands, sewers, utilities, parks, bylaw enforcement, building inspection, and so on. That's the accepted way to build an urban residential infrastructure. Not so acceptable if the goal is to preserve the environment that already exists. In fact, if you love where you live, that's just ass backwards. The Islands Trust represents an experiment, unique in Canada, to change all that, to protect what is already here by controlling the process of development. Under the Islands Trust, land use is hived off and kept separate from delivery of services. In the trust area, service delivery functions remain under the jurisdiction of the regional districts. Why? Because the Gulf Islands are not Los Angeles or Beijing or Nanaimo, come to that. When the Islands Trust was formed, it was an acknowledgement by the provincial government that business as usual was perhaps not the best municipal model for this beautiful but fragile corner of the country. That a form of governance that wasn't dependent on unfettered growth might have a better chance of protecting them. Preserve and protect. That's the Islands Trust mantra. So how's that working out so far? Well, consider. Since 1974, the population of Greater Vancouver more than doubled. The population of BC quadrupled, and then some. The trust area absorbed just 15,000 new residents. Over the same period, nearly 20%, 13,946 hectares, has been protected by public and non-profit conservation organizations. Those statistics may have developers and land speculators gnashing their teeth, but it's good news for those who value the stunning physical beauty of the islands, their rural character, an abundance of diverse wildlife, and residents with a strong sense of community service and volunteerism that is matched nowhere else in BC. We have a diverse economy with retired folks on pensions, young families, tourism, and people working from home. Many artists and writers live here, as do commuters who travel to Victoria, Vancouver, Duncan, and Nanaimo. In 2011, an Ipsos Reid survey revealed that 83% of BC residents polled believed the BC government should take action to make sure the Gulf Islands are preserved and protected for all British Columbians. The rest of the world has taken notice too. The Gulf Islands have become a go-to destination lauded by travel writers in the Globe and Mail and the New York Times. Small wonder. Fragile ecosystems and places of rare beauty are disappearing from our planet. These islands in trust are living examples of both, but only if we properly steward them. So far, it's the support of island residents that has kept the trust alive. Carefully controlled development will continue on the islands, following land use decisions based on sensitivity to the living legacy we all share. That is what the Islands Trust is all about.
My very bones, I prefer an island world, and I prefer my island girl. I'm the oyster, she's the pearl. We live on an island home. We live on an island home.